unless you've been living under a rock, sales teams right now are trying to figure out how to integrate AI into their sales process, and it's become a huge challenge. I'm joined right now by Kevin Baumgart with Set Sales. He and I are going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that sales teams are facing, some tools they can use, some ways to get started to make it easy for you. Kevin, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Tony.
Yeah, man, of course. So one of the things that I just mentioned is, of course, it's becoming overwhelming for sales leaders to even get started with how to begin incorporating AI into their day-to-day workflows. Are you hearing that? What are you hearing from your customers?
Everybody wants to jump in and start using AI more effectively and more robust in a more robust way throughout their team and their org. I'm just not seeing a lot of it yet. I see them, the ChatGPT is used to create copy and other copy based tools like create language and content, but I'm not seeing AI being used effectively in organizations. It's hard, right? There's a ton of tools out there. There's not a lot of process. There's not a lot of structure. It's talked about a lot, but I still don't think we're at a point where small and mid-sized businesses, growing organizations are using AI effectively in the sales orgs.
I'm hearing the same thing. I think a lot of folks will tell a good story about how they're using it, but what I'm seeing is that the consistency isn't there. And ultimately, it starts with the sales leader. It can't be built from the ground up. There's got to be a process in place to get started.
Where do you start? I think it's got to be the leader that initiates it. But what does the leader do? Like, what's the focus? Do you have any thoughts and ideas, or what have you seen as to how people
Yeah.
can start actually diving into AI for sales?
I think why this is a bit different than integration of other technologies is that it's so vast, right? There's so many different ways you could leverage AI, from using GPT for copywriting, but it's also that there's tools, there's process, there's integration, so it becomes feeling like it's pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. The thing that I think I would advise everybody to do, every sales leader out there that's struggling with where to get started, is start small, right? Don't boil the ocean. There are people in your sales organization that are using these tools. Identify who they are, right? And almost build a subcommittee, if you will, to get that group together to start talking about how it's going to fit into your organization and your process.
We actually did that at a startup that I was involved in pretty recently. It wasn't a sales subcommittee. It was like a team of individuals from departments throughout the organization. And what they did was it was mainly focused on product and engineering. How can they use AI to build a better product, build more features faster, right? But they pulled in some sales folks that were using tools already, not only so that the sales organization could see the tools that were in play and how they were using it, but also so that the product and engineering and other operational folks that were using AI could hear from the sales team members on what challenges they faced or how they could improve the sales process and lessen friction. And it was pretty interesting to see what came out of that. Data visualization is a huge piece that what I found right away of using AI and using the platform, the software that we had, all the data that sits in there. Let's use AI to pull out data that we need for customer insights. Was just one instance of what came out of it pretty quickly. But you're right. There are sales team members that are heavily involved in different AI tools that they found that they use that helps them day to day. That has to be extrapolated throughout the sales organization. And again, the leader has to be the one that's managing that ongoing.
Larger, organizational, cross-functional team, right? Because it takes it away from just the sales side of things, and a product person, a dev person, a salesperson, ultimately all thinking about AI and the use of AI in their day-to-day life very, very differently. So there's almost a knowledge transfer as well that gets people thinking outside of the scope of their day-to-day job and how someone else in the org would use it, which is a great primer for an organizational wide AI strategy.
Think about sales in general. it's a little bit of art and science. It's a numbers driven department. Inputs equals outputs, and the activities equal, the outputs that we need to drive deals forward. But there's also kind of an art behind it. So I do think there's just so much potential with an AI and sales organizations, just the nature of the organization and the department within a business.
Something you said too a minute ago that is so true is you have to start with the data, right? We all have data, but how is it interconnected? What out of the data are you trying to glean from how you'd use AI with parsing this data however you need to, use it however you need to? That's critical as well, right? Understanding your data sources, understanding the tools that exist within your tech stack that you can build off of versus investing in a slew of new tools. So, what were the any just high level insights from that last experience that you had from how it all played out?
I think the biggest insight was there's so much potential, and what I kept hearing from the individuals that were part of the committee was there are a lot of things that we can do, from like maybe it's improving forecasting, or maybe it's improving like pipeline strategy, or maybe it's taking call recording and optimizing how we do trainings on recordings. uh, I didn't get to go too far in depth with the team, but what I loved and the feedback that I got from the team members that were on the committee were all of the potential and the opportunity. Um, but that's the easy stuff, right? Like, let's talk about the opportunity, and now it's into the challenging part of this, which is why I think a lot of organizations haven't gotten there. Is now we got to implement. Now we got to get the tools, get to using it, have the team, get it across the organization. Like that's I think the hard part about this.
Ideas are easy. It's the execution that's typically where organizations fall down with
For sure.
any new technology integration. Want to be brief here, so we'll wrap up this session and let's talk through a few more of those more tactical ways that sales teams can use AI in our next podcast, webinar, or whatever you want to call it. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.